Hello, everybody who decided to tune into this. My name is Kaylin Norman-Slack. Like the article says, I'm a game developer and music composer. I have worked on a variety of projects while being in and out of the industry. I've worked on, I've worked on Ghostlight Manor, which is a project that you can play now on Steam. I think they added multiplayer to that. So I still visit that studio on occasion, and I'm really good friends with them there. Let's see, I've worked on Forza Motorsport 7 as a technical artist. Let's see, what else? Oh, and the article mentions I was at Nintendo. Yeah, I did consumer service at Nintendo. That was my first job out of college.
Cool.
So I guess ask me anything. Let's see. So this is gonna sound stupid weird. So I play guitar.
I've heard of that instrument before. I can't place it though.
It's also known as a shoulder synthesizer.
Ah, that's what I've heard it before.
Let's see. So I play guitar right now. I don't play it much, honestly. Most of my compositions have been, just using a computer because I grew up just doing that. Instruments I have played in the past though, I've played the drums. I played a little bit of the piano, keyboard. I used to play for my church when I was growing up. And I played the saxophone. I played the alto saxophone.
Nice.
For like 2-3 years. The band director was kind of a hard. I won't curse. I'll try not to curse. The band director was kind of mean though, so like I kind of lost the joy in playing the saxophone. So I put the instrument down, and it's been like almost 12 years since I picked it up. I've been telling myself someday.
Small steps.
Yeah, baby steps. For now, I'm content just making music using the programs that I have. As to the second question, where do I work? So right now, I am a development support engineer at eFinancial. So completely outside of the games industry, completely different company. And we can get into that, actually.
Cool.
It looks like Livio is trying to say something. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you prefer us to ask our questions through chat or by voice?
Honestly, either or. Whatever feels most comfortable to you. I guess before we actually launch into it, we kind of already have, but there are a few things that I kind of wanted to say about why I'm doing this over voice recording as opposed to doing it through chat. So when I was growing up and I read a lot of AMAs and talked to a lot of developers, there was always this disingenuous feeling that I got when speaking with them. It felt like they didn't really care about where the student was going or how the student was going to actually progress in their career. And that makes sense because in the general industry, everybody's very busy. No one really has the time to sit down and just focus on you as a student. But at the same time, the advice that I got when growing up, it felt kind of bland to me. So by doing this over voice, I want to give you guys a sense of who I am as a game developer and a music composer, like as a professional, but also who I am as a person. And so I guess to go a little bit into my own personal background, I grew up in, I guess, Washington's version of the ghetto. I grew up, I guess, maybe lower middle class. I was diagnosed with a disability. I have autism. So I was diagnosed with autism at around 13, 14. These are all important facts, by the way, because it factors a lot into how I approached my career. So it's called the spectrum now, but back then it was called Asperger's syndrome, or Asperger's if you're in Europe. But all of this factors greatly into how I ended up, where I am right now, and how I've gone on, and how I went down the path that I've gone to get here. So I'll reveal like little bits, and I'll reveal little bits about myself as this progresses. But for now, let's open up the floor.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for that. That's
Thank you.
yeah, definitely varied, I guess, introduction. At least I guess I come from the same kind of varied aspect of coming into the industry than most people that I've spoken with. Everybody kind of goes the quote unquote typical route.
Yeah, they usually most people that you hear about, the most desired route, I guess, is that you go to high school and then either one of a few choices, you go to a college. Right, you go to a college, typically people try to get into DigiPen. I tried twice, but I could not get into DigiPen. I got rejected like twice. It was horrible. Or you go for a computer science degree, and then just try to work game development into it on the side. I went for a design degree, which was basically useless. So because I've been making games on the side for a while, like trying to make games and release stuff, like it became a lot easier to just work the skills that I learned from my degree into the industry. So who's first? Ask me anything.
Okay, well, I guess my first question is because again, I think just from your introduction, we were kindred spirits of sorts. As someone who didn't have a typical, I guess, your atypical route into the industry, someone who's still relatively new, like, I guess to add some background, I went to the Citadel. I'm not sure if many people heard of it. It's a military college. I did that whole route, served 2 years, but my degree was in international criminal justice, completely far and away from game design. How I got to where I'm at now and wanting to pursue that particular type of career is, I realized I prefer that more than what I had studied. Anyway, fast forward. So I guess my question, sorry for the long tangent, is how would, I guess you would advise someone coming from kind of an unrelated background to progress further kind of with an unorthodox skill set, so to speak?
Well, like I actually remember asking that question a long time ago when I was in college. I say a long time ago, but I graduated like 3 years ago.
Damn,
back in the far off year of 2015.
I feel old now.
I'm so old. But I remember asking developers that question back in like 2014, 2015. The one thing that they would always tell me is like, you always have to have, finished, polished products and stuff. So honestly, from my own experience, just being off the beaten path, I'd say just simply start making stuff. And what's odd is like, it's awesome if you finish something and release it on the market. That makes you like way more, I guess, legitimate in the eye of a potential employer. So to release things, right? But I think simply the act of just doing things, actively engaging with, the career that you're trying to get into, can go a long way. I guess for example, like when I was in college, I would try to make a lot of different prototypes on the side. This was when I was just getting into Unity 3D. So I would make a ton of prototypes on the side. They would all be terrible. I was going through heavy bouts of depression at the time. So like they all sucked. And like they were really like low quality. It was like high school projects that you wouldn't feel comfortable releasing on the market, but I was making them. And to go even further back with my music, I began making music when I was like 13, 14 years old. So like the first things I did was made really terrible MIDI songs that repeated over and over again. It was like the song that never ends times 20, But like they were really terrible, but I just kept actively engaging with it, and then really from there it's persistence. One of the things that I do want to hammer in is that trying to be the top game developer is sort of overrated. For me personally, it's about survival. It's about, are you able to wake up in the morning and eat breakfast? Are you able to, drive your car to work? Are you able to pay your bills and live comfortably? Are you able to be happy with career and your home life? Oh, sorry, my voice connection may have gone down. Okay, there we go. So, I feel like I could ramble on forever, but I want to make sure everybody gets questions in. I hope that answered your question.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Hey, hello. Just wanted to say hi.
Hey.
I posted in the Ask Me Anything channel. I was just a little late. But yeah, your answer was really good.
Well, thank
real
you.
Talk.
Yeah, one of the things I also wanted to, I guess, tell you is that you guys are going to get open and honest answers from me. The one thing that I don't really like doing that I've been exposed to a lot is what I tend to call scare tactics, and it's sort of this. Forgive my turn of phrase, but it's to sort of give you this oh shit moment, sort of jolt you back into reality, like that. I guess that can be informative in a way, but it also has a huge chance of, I guess, of disconnecting you from what you actually want to do, or why you want to be in the career in the first place. The example that I can think of in particular is that one time I had went to Valve for an informational interview. This was 2014. And I had began asking the traditional questions like, hey, what do you do? What's your real name? Like, basically what you guys are asking me. And somehow it devolved into a tirade about how Valve doesn't care about Half-Life 3 and how I was just like a whiny fanboy. Basically, he had reduced me to like a D student in high school. And I was pretty livid. So I just want to say that, and actually express that I don't intend to do that. Like, I'm not going to do that to you. You guys are going to get an open, honest answer from me that's just going to be like we're chatting, sitting at a table.
That's really interesting.
That was way too long. Okay, question. Brandon Anderson, what kind of software do you use for creating your music? I use FL Studio. I've been using FL Studio since 2011, I think. It was like FL7. But that's what I use. You'll hear a lot of people talk about using Logic or Cubase or what's the other one?
Pro Tools.
Ableton and Pro Tools, yeah. With the music industry, it's very, very different from the games industry, and actually, I would argue it's way harder to make it in the music industry than the games industry, because even if you're new, you're competing with Kanye West and Britney Spears and Michael Jackson. Like, you're legitimately competing with them for audience attention, as opposed to competing with some guy who's famous in a minor industry.
Yeah, that's true. Those names will stick no matter what.
Yeah. So I guess to bring it to the modern times, you're competing with like Martin Garrix and like, I don't know, Skrillex and all these big brands. Anyhow, the musical software, which are called DAWs, digital audio workstations, they all do the same thing, but the only difference between them mainly is just their interfaces. So for me personally, I prefer using FL Studio because it's extremely easy to get into. It's extremely easy to use. There's tons of tutorials on it. And also, like, it makes awesome stuff. Hope that answers your question, Brandon. Oh my goodness. Where do I begin? So when I was working in an internship at college, working on Ghostlight Manor, if you guys actually listen to some of the commercials, some of the, I guess, little commercials things that they did, or if you actually buy the game and play it, most of the music you hear is mine. And most of the sound you hear, I also had a huge hand in. So as far as like sound design and like, well, actually, let me ask you this. Can you please define the question? Do you mean like sound design and like actually putting the sounds in the game, or just like the difference between sound and music?
Well, I guess I meant to say there's like three parts of that. How much do you compose, and how much do you do like creating sound effects and the ambience for the game as well? And do you also implement them as well yourself, or do you just kind of give it off to the programmer?
Quite honestly, that depends on how the programmer wants me to interact with it. So like right now I'm doing a sort of an unofficial contract because it's just a friend. I'm just helping a friend, and he's like, "Hey, I'll pay you," and I'm like, "Sure, okay,
Yeah,
sure, okay, if that makes you." So I'm making sounds for him. I'm making sounds and the actual soundtrack, and I'm writing the scripts that give him the ease of just saying play sounds and it'll play. So that's as far as I go implementation wise, and then literally when I'm done with that, I just hand it to him. So it honestly depends on like how the programmer wants me to interact with their project.
Cool. One more question I had is, you also program, and so I'm assuming you're doing most of your programming on Unity now because you said you were doing Unity before.
You are correct, sir.
As a person who wants to majorly focus on audio, how beneficial would it be to learn like C#, Unity, and also like other aspects of like, let's say, like art?
Extremely beneficial. It's extremely beneficial, and here's why. Having an active interest in other areas outside of your career, especially if it relates to like learning an engine, gives you I don't want to say it. It allows you to talk to your coworkers. So I'm interested in being a designer. I've always wanted to be a game designer ever since I was a kid. But I took drawing classes, I took programming classes, I took music classes. And taking all of these different classes gave me the ability to communicate with other people in those chosen professions. So if an artist told me, hey, what do you think of this drawing? Instead of saying, oh, it looks good, I could say, oh, hey, you might want to try blending the darks over here. You might want to try emphasizing the shadows a little bit. And because of that, we can have that meaningful dialogue. So as an audio person, something which is also extremely valuable in the industry, being able to program will make you somewhat of a unicorn. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely did. Sorry, to branch out from that. So if you have the skills to design games, write music, do the arts possibly, and program as well, you pretty much have like all the basic elements to be able to create like a basic simple game. Do you think having like finished games made just by yourself is like another strong portfolio tool?
It depends on the scope of the project and the intent of the project, honestly. It used to be that you could just write or you could just participate in game jams, which is a really good way to get experience, and then just use those games as portfolio pieces. But now it seems the industry has shifted towards more serious projects. So it really depends on like your intent of the game, like how detailed and how crafted stuff is.
I see.
And yada yada.
Yeah, it seems like the requirements are increasing as, I guess, popularity for being in industry has exploded over the last, I'd say, 5 years now.
Right, which is unfortunate. I'm glad that the industry's become more popular, but it also makes it harder for students like you guys to actually, get a fair shake. Because you have to compete with all these guys who've been in the industry for years. I could go on a complete diatribe about that, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I live in New York. Well, obviously, I live in New York, so I've talked to like people at the NYU Game Center and stuff like that, and a bunch of their professors and whatnot. And they're like, yeah, it's getting increasingly difficult.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to end up as a junior developer and mostly quality assurance tester for Kingdom Death Monster. So that was my door. I don't think if I had gotten that job, I would have still pursued it, to be honest.
All right, sweet. Let's open the floor back up. Who's next? Come on, I don't bite.
Do you have a dream game that you ever want to work on?
A dream game that I've ever wanted to work. Oh my goodness. So I'm a huge fan of Fire Emblem. So this will never happen. This will never happen. Being the Japanese games industry is something else completely different. The closest I could get is make a fan game like, but that's it. But I've been a fan of Fire Emblem since 2003, and I've always wanted to work on a Fire Emblem game. So if I wanted to make a fan game, dream game that I've always wanted to work on, it'd be a Fire Emblem title.
Fire Emblem was great back in the day, so I have no qualms about that. Love that genre or series. Excuse me.
Kaylin, I got a question for you. As a student, how important is it to go to GDC, especially when we're about to graduate or something?
So here's the thing about GDC. I've never been to GDC.
Oh.
So when I was in college, and Livio, feel free to chime in, people around me who were in the industry touted GDC as sort of a mecca. Like if game development were a religion, like GDC is the temple that you must go to.
That is so true.
Like you're nothing if you don't go there, right?
Yeah.
And I've never been able to go to GDC because like lower middle class and couldn't just drop $2,000 because going to GDC is extremely expensive, and people
it's getting more expensive every year.
Right, and it's I'm of the opinion that people who are able to go to GDC regularly tend to forget that it's extremely expensive, and that there are limited opportunities for students like yourselves to actually get an all access pass, or to get any kind of pass to GDC. So it's important, but I wouldn't exactly say that you need to go there to feel legitimate as a game developer. The reason why GDC is important is because it's a good breeding ground for projects and networking opportunities. But other than that, as far as talks go, just watch it online.
For you briefly said like networking opportunities. So GDC, if we don't have the money to go, would it still be worth it to just go and snoop around the restaurants around there and just try to talk to people?
Yeah,
if you're local, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that if you're local, they throw like a ton of after parties, which are also networking opportunities. But that's if you're able to just if you find yourself around there.
Yeah, it's basically how the economics work for you. If you're a local, it's kind of much easier for you to just stop by the conference area and maybe find some events around town. Much cheaper for you to do that if you already live around there or even in that part of the state. But if you live really far away, it might not be worth the plane.
Like Younghan in New York, like it might not be worth it.
Yeah. So when I was a student, I went to GDC twice, and it really the main benefits that we got from it definitely weren't like jobs. GDC does have a career pavilion where you can apply to jobs and stuff, but I feel like that's only been getting smaller every year.
Yeah.
And I'm
Let's
kind of
put a pin in
about
jobs
that.
because I want to talk about that.
Yeah, and there's networking too. I've actually met people through GDC and they've turned into good contacts. But it's those contacts are maintained by going to GDC every year. And the only reason I've been able to go to GDC every year is because I've had a high-paying job and stuff. GDC is also something that I literally the whole year centers around it. Like I save upward throughout the year because it's so much money. I start planning to go like 6 months in advance as soon as the tickets go on sale.
Oh, yeah.
It's a real endeavor.
Wow.
One thing that when I was in school and students wanted to go to GDC, I would tell them to basically save up during the entire 4 years that you're in school, save up to go if you really want to go. But the biggest impact that GDC had on me as a student was that it made me really excited to work in the games industry. Like when you are, especially in a geographically isolated area where there's not a local game scene there, going to GDC can feel like what Kaylin
It
said,
can actually
like
feel,
a religious
like a
experience.
mecca. It can feel like a mecca if you're from the middle of nowhere, right? But if you're from
Yeah.
like I'm in Seattle, Rob is in New York. Rob Younghand is in New York.
Yeah, by the way,
You know.
sorry, Rob, that's my name. Yeah, everybody knows now.
But if you're in like a highly populated, with game studios everywhere, like I am, or like Livio is, then it's you could just there's tons of events around the Washington area that you could go to and get the exact same feeling.
Honestly, going to GDC is almost like the same motivation for me. Nowadays, it's almost like the same motivation as going to like a convention. Like you just want to go because it's fun, and maybe I don't even think of it as a business investment anymore because the returns aren't that consistent. But it's fun. I love it, and I don't want to miss it. And it's really energizing. Like especially when I was a student. Like I remember before and after I went to GDC for the first time. It's like my impression of the industry was so different. I had so much. Every time I go to GDC, no matter what year it is, I always in the middle of the week have this nagging urge to just go home and work on cool stuff again. I'm like, because it just like really energizes you, and you're like, I want to make cool stuff with like all these other people are doing.
That's the passion.
Yeah, and that can actually be really helpful because, like as we were saying earlier, the industry it's getting harder and harder to break into it. It's hard to stay in love with the industry when it's like that. Going to GDC can really refresh you and remind you why you love making games.
I'm actually lucky enough to have an opportunity because one of the jobs that I had was working as a camp counselor for Girls Make Games. And so because of that, I get like a pass to GDC, so I'm happy.
Nice.
But anyhow, I digress. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, then I can sort of go on my diatribe about jobs. About jobs and job hunting.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. That's a really good question. I'm kind of sitting there because I like my current job, but my passion isn't tabletop stuff. It's more programming. Like I want to be a game programmer. As to whether or not it's character programming or whatnot, haven't decided yet, but that's what I want to do.
Well, that's important. It depends on. Well, actually, let me start from the beginning. So, in my mind, there are two parts. The hemisphere is divided into two parts. There's AAA, and there's what I call the indie sphere, which is basically the AAA and then everybody.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's just how I divide it up. So, if you're trying to go into AAA, you need to figure out exactly what type of programmer that you're trying to be. They tend to not like people who are generalists. They tend to like people who do very specific things. So if you're a character modeler, or you lent for, I don't know, The Sims or something, like you have a better chance than someone who does general modeling because you're doing a very specific thing. Granted, in this made-up scenario, there aren't many studios looking for lent modelers, but I think you guys get the drift.
Yeah. No, it's the more specialized you become, I don't want to say easier it is, but
so really, yeah, exactly. So really, like when you're choosing what you want to do outside of school, you have to choose very carefully between creativity and security. If you want security, I mean, go AAA. As secure as it's as secure as you're going to get games industry wise. If you want creativity, I would say go indie. You're not going to be as secure. There are going to be huge droughts and high periods, and it's going to be a whirlwind or a roller coaster. But you're going to have control of your own creativity. So that really depends. That comes down to what you want to do. From there, before I completely get lost, I wanted to talk about job hunting in particular. Because it can suck, especially for you guys who are students. I don't know if you guys are going to go through the same thing, but graduation was amazing, and then And then like nothing. Just like imagine me standing in a desert with a tumbleweed blowing. It's like that. Like I woke up and I was there. So
I have a lot of friends who went through that.
So it's called post-grad depression. It's gonna hit you guys and it's gonna suck, but you'll get over it. Trust me. It'll be amazing. Once you get over it. So for as far as job hunting goes, the one thing I wanted to hit on was just talking with recruiters actually. Because there's a process that I went through to get my job at Turn 10 that I've repeated for the current job I have now that I really wanted to impart on you guys. When I was in an internship, my audio supervisor had told me that an interview is like a play. If you don't know your script, then you're not going to do very well. Can someone here just take a guess? What do you guys think that means?
It's like there are these specific questions that they're going to ask you, and you have to be prepared to answer those.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark, actually. Yeah. So because I am autistic and have Asperger's syndrome, I took that literally. So for every interview, I wrote a script. And for every interview, I played a character. So for Turn 10, and actually for this job as well, I was this extremely excitable character. I mean, don't fake it, the entire way. Like be true to yourself, right? But I took traits of myself that were really good, and I said, okay, let's play these out. So I was this really excited. I was excited to learn about things. I was extremely interested in the job, and like I really wanted the job, right? And I showed that I had experience and that I was capable of answering the questions. And in writing the script, I wrote all of these points down, these things that I objectively knew, like, oh, hey, I know Unity. Hey, I know Sharp. Because for me, I'm not sure about the rest of you, but for me, when I'm in an interview without a script, suddenly I'm a kindergartner. I know nothing. Suddenly I know nothing. And you have this big important, like, oh, hey, the director of Blizzard is asking you a question. Do you know C#? I think I do. So if you guys want to go that route, I would definitely say give the script writing thing a try. If you're like me, if you're like me and who's extremely forgetful and who's extremely anxious and nervous around, large imposing figures, then being able to say, oh, hey, I wrote this down on paper when I was coherent. I can do this thing. But yeah, that's the strategy I've used, and that's the one that's worked for me for the last 2 jobs. And if you guys need me to write that down somewhere.
Yeah, and another thing that might also help is knowing that in the industry, just in tech and games, there's a lot of discussion about improving the interview process. Because a lot of people do struggle with that, and they're like, well, maybe the process is flawed if people are struggling with it. For example, there's like this movement to get away from whiteboard interviews, whiteboard coding interviews. Like basically whiteboard coding is they ask you a programming problem like they set up this hypothetical problem and you have a whiteboard and a marker and you can like write pseudocode on the board. And like, if I was to code, it would look like this. And people, it's a very flawed method. And a lot of people stress out about it, but just knowing that it's a flawed method and knowing that there's a movement out there might actually help you not be so hard on yourself when that happens.
Right.
And if you're not so hard on yourself, you might actually perform better.
Actually, yeah, that's a very good point, Livia. What else did I want to say about jobs? Oh, recruiters. So when you're out of the industry, or when you're out in the wild in the industry and you put your resume up, most people generally put their resumes on like, the job aggregate sites like Indeed.com, or I don't even know if Monster is in use anymore. But there are like games industry specific aggregate sites too that you can put your resume on. You're going to get talked to by dozens of recruiters. Like, there's going to be tons of recruiters that call you, and they're going to be like, oh, hey, we got this opportunity with hey, we got this opportunity with Microsoft, want to come in for an interview? And so at first I was extremely excited because, oh, hey, a recruiter's talking to me, you know, and I would give them my resume and then nothing. So it took me about a year and a half. No, actually, no, I'm being honest with myself. 2 years. It took me 2 years to realize what the actual interview process was. And that was just from like trial and error. So when you're, this is just my advice to you guys. So when you're in the interview process, you're not trying to impress the recruiter. It's everyone's immediate thought that you want to impress the recruiter. You're not trying to impress the recruiter. To the recruiter, you are a checkbox on a list. It's sort of a, yep, knows this, yep, knows that, yep, knows this. All right, send them on. Okay, so the person you're trying to impress is the hiring manager of the actual company that you're applying to. So as you're writing your resumes, as you're doing, have that in the back of your mind. If you were to talk to the hiring manager, say Bungie, what would you show them? You know, that would make them go, oh, wow, we should really have this guy. That's really all I wanted to impart as far as advice on that.
Definitely makes me think. Yeah.
Sorry, when I get passionate, I get extremely lightheaded. So like I may sound weird.
No, that's cool, man. Passion is a good thing. And to answer your question, I don't know if I'd actually applied it, but
I'm just using them as an example. Obviously, if you were to apply to Nintendo, you know, Bungie, or I guess Blizzard, what would you show their hiring manager that would make them go, you know, this guy might actually fit in the company?
Yeah, and like also while you decide what to do, like if you're gonna work on a side project or something, think about it in that terms as well. Like, how will this translate into something that will make people want to hire you?
Exactly. So
that can actually help you make certain decisions about your project and like steer it towards something that looks more impressive, even if it's not what you would have thought to focus on at the first. But thinking about it as a career step might help.
I will also say that I guess part of the reason why I'm lightheaded is a very cathartic experience for me. Being able to actually tell you guys all of the stuff that you need to know to get into the industry is something that I've always wanted to do, because I've always thought that the process of going through trial and error is BS. You guys shouldn't have to try, fail, and go through depression, you know, constantly just to get your first job. Like it should never work like that. So this is extremely cathartic for me, being able to tell you guys all of the stuff I've learned from going through that horrid experience, in hopes that you guys don't have to go through that.
Yeah, that's something I learned coming out of college. Was it 2018 now? So almost 10 years ago now. And something I learned, getting out into not necessarily the gaming industry, but the first jobs that I had coming out, which kind of was surprising, because you get your degree and what have you, and you know what you know. But what no one ever tells you is that when you get, and I'm pretty sure it's the same way in AAA studios. When you get to your teams, you should know what you're doing, but they have a very specific way on how they do things, so they're going to retrain you for that.
Right.
Anyway, so
it's actually something you should keep in mind, everyone, as you're interviewing. Like, they will train you, so don't expect to be they don't expect you to be an expert. They expect you to. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's perfectly fine. I mean, it's very true. Like, from no matter what industry you go into, the job is going to train you to do things their way. And that always kind of bothered me, going back to what you said about how you really shouldn't have to kind of beat your head against the wall to get your first job.
Right.
That's something that I'm struggling with now, and reminding myself is like, I'm just trying to get an entry-level fucking position.
Right.
I'll sit there and do the grunt work if you want me to for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. Fuck it. I just want that opportunity.
Actually, while we're on the notion of jobs, sorry to cut you off again.
No, it's fine.
While we're on the notion of jobs, a thought occurred to me. So who here has ever done QA testing, aside from Livio and myself?
I have.
No one? Okay, so this is going to be a strange note because I know this is going to be listened to by a lot of people. So back when Livio and I were just getting into the industry, the route people often went was that they'd be a QA tester, and then after a certain amount of time, they'd get to be a developer or a designer or something. That method doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So that method does not work. I've seen a lot of my friends go into QA testing positions and basically languish there because either A, the company is not paying attention, or B, like they're all contractors and the company doesn't take from that contractor.
Yep, that's kind of where I'm at now. I run my team. It's very small. It's personable, but there's really no upward mobility. So
the best way that I've found to get into the games industry right now is honestly just making games.
Yeah.
Which sounds like an extreme cop-out, and I hated it when people told me that, especially older developers. But like, we're in an age where a grandfather of 2 can work on Game Maker for like 6 months and come out with a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like back when I was in community college back in like 2012, it felt like you had to know C++, and it felt like you had to shake down a developer or like threaten their family just to figure out what a design document because that's how tight-lipped these studios were. Like you wouldn't even have to ask to read their design document. Just ask, what is a design document, and they just clamp up.
Yeah.
And nowadays, this information is extremely free. It's free. It's free flowing. It's everywhere. And I simply just make a game. Start small. Like even right now, I'm going back to. I'm just making a little jumper game for a mobile phone. That's all I'm doing.
Yep. That is actually one of my next questions, and a big sticking point, kind of a big wall for me personally. How do you come up with project ideas? Like, and in a way that you're kind of not doing the same thing over and over again.
So,
because I suck at coming up with projects.
Great question. So most people would say, okay, so you need to do a healthy balance of play games, of course, because we're in that age where every idea.
Oh no, we lost.
Huh? Can you guys hear me?
Okay, you're back.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. Sorry. I was saying we're in an age where every idea is sort of an amalgamation of every other idea. So play games, but also do literally anything else. Listen to music, go exploring, travel. Like get outside of your normal environment, because as creators, as artists, inspiration tends to come to us when we are the most relaxed. So like you guys know the whole concept of shower thoughts, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Game ideas and project ideas naturally tend to come when we are most relaxed. So find a way outside of playing games, right, to relax yourself. Anything to keep yourself in that relaxed state.
Kaylin, have you heard of the Seattle Indie Adventure meetups?
Yeah, I actually have. I'm actually looking into.
You should like advertise your day trips there. Like, hey, anybody want to go to the zoo with me?
That's a good.
So
kind of.
Like,
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know this, someone in the Seattle Indies community started a series of adventure meetups where the idea is to just do non-work related stuff together.
Right.
And, like last year, we all went sledding, snow tubing actually. And this year they have a what is it? A horse ride?
Like a horseback riding thing? Yeah.
No, it's like a horse in a carriage in the snow kind of thing. It's
right.
interesting. They've also been to the aquarium and all that.
So literally just do literally anything else to get outside of your environment. And honestly, the fact that you do anything else like any other hobby, for me with music, that does make you more desirable as a candidate for a job. Because I know this was sent out recently. There was I don't know if you saw it, Livio, the business article for with Shigeru Miyamoto.
Yes.
saying that
I
they
think
don't
I
hire
posted it
gamers.
on the Discord.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were the one who posted it. Yeah, there was an article that went out recently where Shigeru Miyamoto said that they don't hire gamers, which I get where he was coming from. They don't hire people who just play games because of the exact point that you speculated or that you gave, Rob. But
at least for their senior positions,
right. But they hire people that play games and do other things.
Yeah, like I mean, going back to kind of what you were saying about shower thoughts. For me, oddly enough, I do have some of those where I'm like just reading a book or watching Netflix and my brain's there, but it's not really on that. It's just there. But most of mine tend to come when I'm rock climbing. There's a rock climbing not that far from me, and while it's physically taxing, when you've been doing it for 6 years, or even for those of you who don't rock climbing is complex, but it's also very simple.
Right.
It's simple because once you get the moves down, once you understand how your body moves, you don't really have to think. So you just execute, and that's kind of what I do when I'm rock climbing. I let my mind wander to other things, and it helps.
Yeah, I've heard people say similar things about exercise in general, how they find it like mentally relaxing.
Right. I go to the gym every because of that same reason. It gets me in a relaxed state.
It can do so much for your mental health.
Right, that too.
Yeah.
Even though it's exercise for your physical health.
Let's see. There's another thing. Write everything. So
I was just about to ask. It's like, what do you think of blogging?
Write everything. And I mean, what I mean by write everything is like, in my bedroom right now, I have like 5 different tiny notebooks of graph paper. Graph paper is my best friend. Graph paper and a pencil is my So I write every idea that I have down, no matter how stupid or how ridiculous it sounds. Because that could be a potentially good idea. I've often said that good ideas usually start out as bad ideas at first.
Yeah.
And then they're eventually good. So
cool. Damn, that's a lot to take in. This is.
I really do hope I'm helping you.
No, this has been another informative AMA.
Yeah, I wanted to say a little thing about QA roles.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I actually met at JC last year someone who was a QA lead, and I talked to him a bit about. I'm like, well, I feel like everyone in the industry talks about QA like a stepping stone job, not necessarily a job people actually want. And this guy, he had been working in QA for like, I don't know how many years, like 20 years or something. And he was like tired of that perspective. Like, I wish people would just think of QA. I am too. Yeah, like to just think of QA as like a real job and actually try to enjoy it, as opposed to getting impatient and like expecting it to be a stepping stone. It's like Kaylin said, it's becoming less of a stepping stone these days. And so I don't want to discourage. Yeah, I don't want to discourage people from thinking of that as a possible career option, or at least a job that they might enjoy for a little while. But I like just the idea of like one empowering way that he spoke about his job is that he sees it as it's literally quality assurance. Like, you're hunting bugs and stuff, but all these little things have a big impact on the player's experience. And if you care about making a good game, that's the kind of grunt work that makes the game good.
Right.
100%.
And like people get excited about the being the idea person coming up with the ideas, but there's a lot of professionalism and
that doesn't exist, by the way. The idea person has never existed.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And like that's like the first thing anyone who wants to become a game designer learns, is that being the idea person isn't a real job. Like you are expected to do real grunt work of solving individual design problems and communicating with the team and following the process the entire way through. But
I'm gonna put a pin in that because I do want to talk about how we got to this point in the industry. Because I know it's my little crackpot theory, but I do have a pretty good theory of how we got here. Here being like where, you know, people are like, oh, you know, I want to be in the games industry. I have tons of ideas, you know. And as you guys know, it's been pervasive. I'm sure we all started out as that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you think of an idea, and you're like, I want this idea to exist. How do I do that? I guess I gotta become a game designer who decides the ideas. It's like a very normal flow of thought.
Well, that's when you know. I'm talking about before launch into your career as a game designer. Like when you're like, let's say you're like 10 and you're like, I want to make video games, and like you don't know how, but you're just like, I have all these ideas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So back when I was growing up, back when we were all growing up, really, G4 was a thing, and a lot of commercials on there had to do with games. Does anyone remember those really bad Game College commercials?
Yeah.
Tweak the sounds of level 3, man.
Yeah. Oh god, the good old days.
So my little crackpot theory is that games industry people saw that commercial and thought this is really ridiculous, but everyone else saw the commercials and thought, oh, this is legitimately how to do it. And unfortunately, after those commercials aired, people began believing that all people do in the games industry is just come up with ideas and play video games. And it's been this weird, pervasive thing that no one's ever really talked about.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm pretty sure we've all been there. You know, we've had the instance of where we're playing a game, and someone older than us is like, "Hey, stop wasting your time playing a damn game."
Right.
And they're done that, and yeah, and that's the thing. And I think that's even till this day, with the explosion in kind of rhetoric about the game industry and how it actually functions, people still see it as a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
And that's true for a lot of professions too. I've spoken with a lot of friends who love to draw, and their families tell them, drawing, you can't make money by drawing pictures. You have to go study medicine or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just unaware, or that there's an entire multi-million-dollar animation industry, and the games industry hires a lot of artists for so many things, not just animation, but static art as well.
Yep.
One of the things, to speak to piggyback off the things that I actually had to do, one of the things that I had to do to get funding in college to take classes was that I actually had to prove to a government agency that the games industry actually exists, because they did not actually believe that the industry existed, even though there are video games everywhere. So I had to do a ton of research. I quizzed everybody. I sent out a survey and basically smacked them across the face with as much data as I could find.
Probably cited the IGDA a lot.
Yeah, I did. So hey, here's the games industry exists. Here's this job position. Here's how much it makes. Here's literally all of the people I know who do this job for a living. So.
And actually, to kind of rewind and go back to the jobs aspect, I think the reason why people view QA as kind of a stepping stone, even to this day, I think it's because it's overshadowed by, I guess, the perceived prestige of being that programmer or that designer, in terms of title, but also probably in terms of pay. Because I'm pretty sure there is a huge pay disparity between programmers and quality assurance guys.
There is.
Yeah, and then you add seniority and all that. And it's even weird.
Yeah. And it's really a shame because Olivia, you hit it on the head. The QA team are kind of the last bastion before your game gets shipped with the bugs it's going to get shipped. They kind of determine whether your game gets shipped with 1,000 bugs or 100. And that can honestly be the difference between a great title and a title people hate.
Yeah, or a title people love to hate.
Exactly. Damn. That was eye-opening.
Looks like we're at our time. There are people pacing the meeting room, so I got to get out of here.
Yeah,
Thanks a
say,
lot.
hopefully
Thank
you
you.
get to grab some lunch, man.
I hope this talk has actually been for you guys. I'm super excited to actually have this chance. Have I actually helped anyone here? Like, I just want to know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
kind of let's see how I'm gonna put this. It's rekindled that fire to continue because with the end of the year having passed, I was kind of in a place where I was like, I thought I'd be further along, but I'm not. So it's kind of reminded me that it's persistence. Gotta kind of just stick it out sometimes.
Yeah. EMP is typing something. Before I guess we end this whole stream, I do want to leave you guys with some parting words.
Yes.
Oh God. I wish I'd written them down. I do want to leave you guys with some words though. Stay true to who you are, as cheesy as that sounds. And most importantly, find happiness. This industry is extremely competitive. And as much as I hate to say it, it's extremely soul-sucking. It's really easy to get into the grind and forget why you're actually in the industry in the first place. Try to find that happiness, try to find that comfort, and strive to be a better version of yourself rather than striving to be, what a recruiter wants you to be.
A lot of people in game design say, find the fun. Find the
Right.
fun in your career too.
Right. So like right now with my job, I'm not even in the games industry, but I honestly enjoy where I'm at because all of the skills that I'm learning here as a development support engineer help me better make They help me make projects more efficiently. So like here I'm learning actual C# as opposed to working in a studio learning Unity C#. Like try to relate every career you go down, every career you take or every job you have to your career. Try to figure out a way to sell it to a recruiter. It's just a little tip from me going down the unconventional, but everything tends to happen for a reason. And if you really flex it hard enough, everything can be related to game design.
Or design in general, to be honest.
Right. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but at least give the book of lenses a glance.
Which one?
Give the Art of Game Design a book of. It's a book by Jess
I
Shell.
love that book. Everyone
It's a
read
book. Yeah, it's a book by Jess Shell. It's basically become a game design Bible.
I'll post the link to it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So actually, wait. So other parting words.
Some libraries
before,
might have it.
Quick books before we go. Jess Shell, the Art of Game Design, a book of lenses. It's really brilliant. It reads just like having a conversation with. It's amazing. Fundamentals of Game Mechanics and Advanced Game Mechanics. Those are the ones I've read. Game Design: A Theory of Fun, and look into works by Jesper Juhl, and I'll type that out. It's spelled Jesper Juhl, but look into works by Jesper Juhl. Excuse me. Specifically, look at. I think the book's. I can't remember, but it's a book on online war. I'll post the link in chat when but those are my parting words, and I'm really glad I've had the chance to speak with you guys over voice. I know this is a rather unique opportunity, but I hope I have helped you guys. I hope this is as cathartic for you as it is for me.
It was.
This
Thank
was
you so
amazing.
much.
For sure.
And I'm not sure about the other game developers. Just because it's over here doesn't mean I'm not going to disappear suddenly. I'm in this group now, so if you guys need to ask me anything, ping me. I'll try my best to answer within time. I've got a job, so.